Welcome to the deep dive. You send us the sources you're curious about, the articles that caught your eye, and we extract the essential knowledge, the surprising connections, so you can get smart fast and even enjoy the process.
Mhm.
Today, we're diving deep into Don Pendleton's Assault on Soho, based on the excerpts you shared, the prologue and the opening chapters of this thriller.
Our mission, as always, is to go beyond just a simple summary. We really want to understand the core of this story as it kicks off. Why is Mack Bolan actually on English soil, and what are these initial forces kind of converging around him?
Yeah, grasping the starting puzzle pieces?
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Who is Mack Bolan when he arrives in Dover?
Well, the prologue hits you hard, doesn't it? This isn't someone on, a holiday. Mack Bolan's a man forged in this crucible of loss and vengeance.
Right.
His one-man war against the Mafia didn't start as some, grand crusade. It was a raw, deeply personal reaction to the brutal destruction of his family.
That initial rage, yeah, that drive for retribution, it's a powerful motivator. But what's interesting, I think, is how that personal vendetta evolves. It's not just about settling a score anymore.
No.
Bolan starts to see the bigger picture, the systemic corruption,
Mm-hmm.
what he actually calls this kingdom of evil.
Mm-hmm.
And that understanding seems to, well, solidify his commitment to a fight that really has no end in sight for him.
And the man himself, he's not just some random guy off the street, right? We learn he was a highly decorated sniper in Vietnam with a, frankly, staggering number of verified kills, over 80 VIPs.
Yeah.
That points to a level of lethal efficiency most of us can't even begin to imagine.
The prologue really emphasizes the almost supernatural level of his skills, penetrating hostile zones, confirming targets under extreme pressure, and then just vanishing without a trace time after time.
It's incredible.
The fact that the Viet Cong had a specific name for a bounty on his head that tells you everything about the fear and maybe respect he commanded on the battlefield.
Yeah.
How does someone even get that kind of reputation?
Yet there's this really stark contrast. The
Yeah.
narrative points out that people who knew him personally saw a quiet, maybe even kindly man, someone willing to risk his life for others. It's that classic dichotomy, isn't it? The capable killer and the compassionate human being somehow existing in the same person.
Exactly. And the tragedy that fuels his transformation into the executioner, it's horrific. His father driven to ruin and suicide by Mafia loan sharking after his sister was forced into prostitution.
Downfall.
That's the personal hell that forged him. He makes this conscious choice to enter a life of unending warfare against what he sees as this irredeemable evil.
So by the time Assault on Soho actually begins, Mack Bolan is already a legend in the underworld, the most feared man imaginable. He's hunted by both the Mafia and law enforcement with a $100,000 price on his head.
Huge target.
He's basically walking into England with this massive target painted right on his back.
And that kind of relentless pressure, it inevitably leads to isolation, right? The prologue describes him as the cat that walked by himself. That's such a powerful image.
It really is.
A solitary figure operating in a world where trust isn't just rare, it's potentially fatal. So, okay, he arrives in Dover. What are his first impressions?
Almost immediately, there's this sense of unease, a prickling of danger. He hasn't even seen a specific threat, but stepping off that ferry from Calais, something just feels wrong.
Yeah.
That intuition, honed by years of survival, it just kicks in instantly.
What's fascinating is how Pendleton portrays this sort of heightened awareness. It's not a jump scare. It's a series of subtle things, inconsistencies that trigger his suspicion.
Right.
The too easy escape from France, the suspiciously quick passage through customs. These are huge red flags for someone like Bolan, who's trained to look for the unseen angles,
Mm-hmm.
He's immediately assessing whether he's being deliberately led into a trap.
And his reaction is pure instinct, trained and honed. The almost casual unbuttoning of his coat, feeling the Beretta, chambering around, it's all about readiness. As the text says, the retreat was over.
Yeah.
He's not waiting to be attacked. He's preparing to meet the threat head on.
And he's not reacting emotionally. He's analyzing. He deliberately lags behind, observes the flow of people, identifies potential escape routes even before knowing what the specific threat is.
What?
Then he notices the pattern. Footsteps behind him, not just one set, but a coordinated pair, then another. He realizes he's being bracketed, a classic pincer movement to cut him off.
So instead of just blundering into their likely kill zone, Bolan makes a sharp, unexpected move to the left flank. He's disrupting their plans, forcing them to react to him. Why do that instead of just running?
Well, I think it speaks to his proactive mindset. He understands that to survive, he needs to identify his adversaries before engaging. Blindly running could lead him straight into other dangers, potentially even the police.
Good point.
The deliberate pause, it's a tactical feint, right? Gives him a moment to listen, to gauge their reaction as they try to adjust their formation.
And then, like, boom, out of nowhere, Anne Franklin appears. This sudden intervention, the urgent warning, and then this totally bizarre disguise, a bright red wig, a beard, a seaman's jacket.
It's wild.
Something straight out of a spy novel, completely unexpected.
What's crucial here, though, is that this isn't some random act of kindness. Anne's words, "You shall never get out of Dover unless you do exactly as I say," they're pretty forceful.
Definitely.
The pre-packed hat box with the disguise, the planned car switch, it all suggests a prearranged operation. But, like, who orchestrated it and why? That's the big question.
They make the switch to a VW bus, ditching the Jaguar, and almost immediately a police car races past, sirens blaring. It's frantic, high-stakes stuff right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Bolan's barely set foot in England, and he's already deep in it, on the run.
But even amidst the immediate chaos, Bolan's mind is already shifting, isn't it? He's not just focused on escape. He's assessing Anne, trying to figure out her motive.
The way's thinking.
He recognizes that, whatever her reasons, she's given him a temporary advantage, a chance to regain some control, maybe.
And their destination is this rather ominous-sounding place, the Museum de Sade. Anne presents it as her private space, as she works there as the curator.
Yeah, I can't imagine Bolan feeling particularly reassured by that name.
No kidding. His discomfort is palpable in the text. The locked doors, discovering the hidden camera, these aren't exactly the welcome signs of a safe haven.
Right, it immediately confirms his suspicion that he's still very much in the dark about who these people are and what they actually want with him.
Bolan's reaction to that hidden camera is so typical of him. Direct, decisive, bang. A bullet through the lens sends a very clear message.
Nonverbal communication.
And when the unseen voice tries to smooth things over, he just blasts the lock off a door. He's clearly not in the mood for polite conversation.
Which leads him into the truly bizarre interior of this museum. Oriental rugs, harem cushions, incense. It's this veneer of exotic sensuality that quickly gives way to the unsettling and the disturbing. And then that doorway, the wood carving of buttocks leading to cherrywood labia. It's deliberately provocative and, frankly, pretty shocking. What do you make of this whole setting?
Well, it's immediately clear this isn't your average museum, right? Chastity belts, black whips. It all culminates in the namesake, the Marquis de Sade himself. It's a space dedicated to exploring the darker edges of human desire, to put it mildly.
And his interactions with Anne within this environment are just so ambiguous. She claims she's trying to help him, but she's obviously part of this strange world.
Totally.
The mention of Charles in the cellar, the security station, adds another layer of mystery. Who is this Charles, and why is he down there?
Exactly. Anne's giving off all sorts of mixed signals. One minute, she's helping him escape Dover. The next, she's leading him into this incredibly strange place, offering these cryptic explanations that probably raise more questions than they answer for Bolan.
His trust has got to be wearing incredibly thin at this point.
You'd think so.
Then we have the arrival of this stiff little man who just further muddies the waters. He echoes Anne's claim of trying to help Bolan, warns him about the dangers outside, and then makes that rather pointed reference to Kipling's cat that walked by himself. It's like they're trying to brand him with this image of a lone operator. Why do you think they use that literary reference?
Maybe it's a way of acknowledging his independence, perhaps even suggesting a sort of grudging respect for his ability to stand alone.
Could be.
And just as Bolan seems ready to leave this bizarre establishment, Anne presses a key into his hand, a flat on Russell Square, Queen's house.
Another twist.
It feels like a lifeline, but after everything he's just experienced, Bolan must be viewing it with a significant degree of suspicion.
Oh, for sure. And his departure from the museum isn't exactly a clean break either.
Yeah.
He encounters Charles, this elderly man who guides him through a sewer tunnel.
Yeah, the former OSS guy.
Right, this former OSS liaison officer offers that very cryptic remark about the museum being a symbol of our times. It's almost a throwaway line.
Yeah.
But it feels significant, doesn't it? What could he possibly mean by that?
It hints at something deeper than just a weird building. Maybe it represents some kind of societal decay, a hidden underbelly. Something.
Emerging from the sewer, Bolan is immediately confronted with the Mafia's presence. The Lincoln with the spotlight. Classic surveillance tactic.
Yep.
And then There's Anne Franklin again, seemingly talking to the very people he's trying to evade.
That must just cement Bolan's distrust, right? He makes his move from a nearby bookstore, which then erupts into that brutal shootout in the square.
Total chaos.
Using the Lincoln spotlight as a weapon, he takes down multiple attackers, and it seems Jack Dunlap is among them. It's a violent, messy introduction to the London underworld, and it happens incredibly fast.
Bolan manages to escape in the stolen Lincoln, leaving behind a very angry Dano Giuliano. Giuliano's later conversation with Nick Trigger sheds light on the Mafia's extensive financial interests in London movie companies, theaters, clubs.
Dig money.
And their surprising respect, or maybe just caution, regarding the local police. It's not the Wild West they might be used to back home.
That conversation really underscores the fact that Bolan isn't just stirring up a local gang, he's impacting significant financial interests, which will undoubtedly escalate the response.
Absolutely. And indeed, a high-level Mafia meeting reveals Scotland Yard's full-scale mobilization, routine duties suspended, furloughs canceled. They see this as a major incursion, a potential battle for Britain.
Wow. Despite the chaos he's unleashing, Bolan seems to have some kind of code. He recognizes the danger he brings to anyone who aligns with him, including the people at the Museum de Sade.
Yeah, his past is littered with the consequences of association, isn't it? Collateral damage.
His immediate need is to disappear, but driving a stolen Lincoln is hardly inconspicuous. Then he discovers that arsenal in the trunk.
Oh, yeah.
Including that high-powered Weatherby Mark V sniper rifle with detailed ballistics. This find earns the unknown owner of that weapon Bolan's grim respect. It suggests a formidable, unseen adversary out there.
Someone who knows what they're doing.
Exactly. His immediate plan is just to get out of England quickly, via BOAC. But just as he's about to enter the air terminal, who reappears? Anne Franklin, insisting on going with him.
He must have such mixed feelings about her at this point, to say the least.
Do you think? They arrive at Anne's flat, Queen's house, on Russell Square. Her behavior remains erratic. Her explanations about living with this major stone feel increasingly flimsy.
Yeah, it doesn't quite add up.
Bolan, understandably exhausted, just wants a bath, but the atmosphere is thick with unspoken tensions and unanswered questions.
And Anne's questioning of Bolan about being the executioner, her unsettling pronouncements about him having no allies in England, and even hinting at mass violence, it all feels like she's trying to understand the darkness within him, or maybe even manipulate it.
Could be. Bolan's exhaustion is palpable. The offer of the bath seems like a moment of near surrender for him. But even when he's unconscious, Anne's actions, handling his weapon, caring for him, introduce yet another layer of ambiguity to her character. Is she a threat? A savior? Something else entirely?
It's impossible to tell at this stage. Meanwhile, within the Mafia ranks, Joe Stacchio throws a curveball, suggesting they try to make peace with Bolan, maybe even recruit him.
Which is pretty wild, and it's met with a lot of resistance, right? Particularly from the more hardline guys like Arnie Farmer Castiglione.
Definitely. Stacchio's reasoning, his belief in Bolan's almost supernatural survival instincts, his sixth sense, it's interesting. Marinello, ever the pragmatist, decides to hedge his bets.
Play both sides?
Exactly. A contract on Bolan, handled by Arnie, and a tentative outreach led by Joe. It shows a real division within the Mafia ranks regarding how to handle this unprecedented threat.
The plot takes another twist when Anne leaves a note for Bolan to meet her at Soho Psych. His arrival at the club is immediately suspicious, Anne showing up with another man, followed by Harry Parks.
His internal alarms must be screaming.
Totally. And the doorman's seemingly casual remark about two men at the door being Scotland Yard just confirms Bolan's fears. He's walking right into a setup.
And it looks like law enforcement is somehow involved, maybe working with forces he doesn't yet understand.
Inside Soho Psych, the air is thick with tension. Harry Park's accusatory tone, Bolan's immediate announcement about the police presence outside.
Yeah, he calls it right out.
And then Anne's admission about the Major's involvement and sensitive information. It feels like a pressure cooker about to explode.
And when the Major confirms the presence of multiple gangsters outside, Bolan, ever the pragmatist, decides the only way out is to escalate, to go over the top.
His escape via the rooftop and a back alley leads to a brief but deadly encounter with an American gangster. Then he makes a daring return to the Museum de Sade, using the bookstore as a secret entry to Charles's security cellar.
And what he discovers there is just horrifying. The extensive surveillance system, the live performances being monitored.
Sickening.
But the real horror unfolds when he realizes Edwin Charles, the old man who helped him escape earlier, is the victim being tortured on one of the screens. his suffering masked by the simulated acts happening around him.
Oh, God. Bolan's reaction is just visceral, explosive rage. He destroys the monitor, severing that connection, and arms himself with the Uzi. You can almost feel his fury radiating off the page.
Yeah, it's a turning point. The conversation between Giuliano and Trigger, after Bolan's escape from Soho Psych, reveals their miscalculations and, crucially, Trigger's deeper connection to the Museum de Sade.
Trigger knew way too much.
Trigger's knowledge of Bolan's movements suggests a level of control and awareness that's deeply unsettling.
Bolan then unleashes his fury in a devastating counterattack on the Mafia outside the museum, capturing Stevie Carbon in the process.
Although during the interrogation, Bolan quickly realizes he's not talking to Stevie, it's Giuliano himself trying to play dumb.
Right. Giuliano reveals Nick Trigger as his key contact in London, confirming Trigger's knowledge of Bolan's arrival and his connections within the museum, referring to the operators with a derogatory term.
While Giuliano tries to downplay any knowledge of Charles's torture, Bolan senses a core of truth in his statements. He lets Giuliano go, recognizing the value of maybe having a contact on the outside, but he fails to get the crucial info about the Mafia's headquarters.
So Bolan is left grappling with a disturbing question. If the Mafia wasn't directly responsible for Charles's torture and murder, then who was?
Exactly. His focus now shifts to finding Charles's killer and identifying the ex-POW Anne mentioned, who we presume is Major Stone.
And that call comes in from Leo Turin, an old associate now working for the Mafia, offers a potential, albeit very uneasy, alliance.
Yeah, Turin reveals the Mafia believes he can reach Bolan and warns him about the intense police presence, even offering to contact Hal Brugiola, someone presumably connected to law enforcement or intelligence.
Turin also provides vital intel. Arnie Farmer Castiglione is bringing in reinforcements, and he agrees to look into Major Stone's connection to Charles. This suggests a growing network of players converging around Bolan, doesn't it?
It really does. Returning to Queen's house, Bolan faces this tense confrontation with Anne, who holds him at gunpoint with an unloaded Weatherby significantly.
Key detail. Their emotional exchange revolves around Charles's death and their mutual suspicions. Anne reveals she's under some form of technical arrest.
They start trying to piece together the possible motives behind Charles's murder, considering both the Mafia's potential involvement and the possibility of other actors at play.
Anne explains her role at the museum planning events, catering to the members' idiosyncrasies, as she puts it, and her personal revulsion for the whole place.
Her relationship with Major Stone is clearly complicated. He oversaw her upbringing. She feels this deep obligation to him. The revelation that he was present at the party in the museum adds another layer of suspicion.
Yeah, Bolan presses her on the depth of her feelings for the Major, you know?
Bolan then articulates his growing certainty that Charles's murder wasn't random, that it somehow connected to his own arrival in England. They form this fragile pact, a temporary alliance born out of shared suspicion and danger.
But it's immediately disrupted by the arrival of the police surrounding Queen's house. Bad timing.
Or maybe not timing at all. They manage to escape just as the police close in. But elsewhere in London, Mafia reinforcements are arriving at their headquarters. The narrative gives us a glimpse into their internal power dynamics. Arnie's ruthlessness, Nick Trigger's ambition and resentment towards Dano, and their unified goal: eliminate Bolan.
As Bolan and Anne drive, he starts connecting the dots. Soho Psyche, Nick Trigger, Major Stone, the pieces begin to form a disturbing picture of blackmail and exploitation.
And then, the totally unexpected happens. Major Stone, who was hiding in the back of Anne's car the whole time, captures Bolan. Wow. Stone reveals he was aware of Bolan's suspicions and has been manipulating events all along.
Their return to the Museum de Sade sets the stage for a terrifying confrontation. Stone reveals his sadistic plan to torture Bolan, but in a surprising act of defiance, Anne intervenes, saving Bolan from Stone's trap. What do you think motivates her sudden change of heart there?
It suggests a real conflict within her, doesn't it? A growing unease with Stone's actions, maybe a realization of the true depths of his depravity, or maybe something else.
Perhaps. Their subsequent discovery of Harry Parks's body in the pool, staged to look like Charles's death, is a chilling revelation of Stone's manipulative tactics. Just awful.
Shaken and disturbed by this gruesome discovery, they flee the museum. Bolan reflects on Charles's earlier words about the museum being a symbol of our times.
Yeah, that line keeps coming back.
It seems that cryptic remark is starting to gain a much darker significance. Their decision now is to head to the Tower of London to meet Leo Turin.
Okay, back at Mafia headquarters, the discussions continue, revealing their two-pronged approach to Bolan the peace offering versus elimination. Turin's meeting at the tower provides crucial intel. Charles wasn't just some old guy, he was a highly decorated brigadier general with expertise in electronic spying.
That definitely elevates the stakes considerably.
Turin's information about Major Stone dishonorable discharge, sudden wealth, his connections to Nick Trigger and Soho Psyche paints a clearer picture of Stone's likely motivations. Money, power, blackmail.
He also relays Bragnola's urging for Bolan to accept the Mafia's peace offering, a suggestion Bolan flatly rejects. He's not wired that way.
No way. Turin does, however, provide a potential piece of leverage. Information about Nick Trigger's nightclub.
At the tower, amidst all the historical significance, Bolan and Turin discuss Charles, Stone, and Trigger. Turin warns of Arnie's potential moves. Returning to Anne's flat, a brief moment of intimacy is just shattered by the persistent image of Harry's staged death.
Haunting.
Bolan deduces the truth, and they realize they are indeed on a path to understanding Charles's symbol of our times. Their destination remains the Tower of London.
So as this initial deep dive concludes, we see Bolan arriving in England and immediately being thrust into this complex web of danger, intrigue, and frankly bizarre encounters centered around Anne Franklin and the unsettling Museum de Sade.
Yeah, he's caught between the Mafia, a shadowy operative in Major Stone, and these lingering questions surrounding Charles's murder. It's a real mess.
The key questions that remain hanging in the air are, who truly killed Charles and why? What is the deeper, more sinister meaning of the Museum de Sade as this symbol of our times?
And what are Major Stone's ultimate manipulative goals in this deadly game he seems to be orchestrating?
You now have a much clearer understanding, hopefully, of the treacherous landscape Mack Bolan has entered. This is clearly more than just a straightforward clash with the mob. There are layers of betrayal, perversion, and hidden agendas at play.
And that leads us to a final thought, maybe. Charles called the Museum de Sade a symbol of our times. Given everything Bolan has encountered, the torture, the exploitation, this pervasive sense of moral decay, is this isolated to just a few twisted individuals? Or does it reflect something broader, a sickness within society itself?
It's definitely a question worth pondering as you consider the darkness explored in these excerpts. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. If you have more sources you'd like us to explore, please do send them our way. Until next time, keep questioning and keep digging deeper.